Chinese statue is a story about how people take on from generations to generation something that they think very significant, but it is not. So here the story begins in an auction house जहाँ चीजों को नीलाम किया जाता है. And the narrator, the writer Jeffrey Archer, has gone there as a journalist, and he sees that there are people uh, who have come along with him, and the people, मतलब auction house के लोग वो announce कर रहे हैं lot number this. You must have seen in movies, वो नीलाम करते हैं और बोलते हैं 1 2 3, so this goes to this. So in that auction house, it's in London, South Bay auction house, the story begins. And there comes an item, a statue of a Chinese emperor, which is to be sold. But the name of the background of the statue के किसका है, किस घर से आया है, ये नहीं था. So narrator Jeffrey Archer, writer, he became a bit curious to know the background of this statue. So the story is in flashback. So the story begins in an auction house in London, and the narrator is curious to know about the item's background, about the statue which has been sold, Chinese statue. वो कहाँ से है, किसका है, कब से आया. So author says normally this happens that if that item is sold by a very famous person, but he does not want to declare that he is selling it because it's a family heirloom. So the name of that person is normally not mentioned in the auction house. So here, let us study the chapter in detail. So the story has two timelines. The story has two timelines, like time travel. One, the present time in which the story begins. Okay. And then in the past, from where the statue came. So the story has two timelines. One, when Alex, whose property this Chinese statue is, who is selling it, and the other, which is of his great grandfather. So the story has two timelines. One, जब ये auction house में ये सामान Chinese statue बिक रहा है, और एक कुछ पहले का, माने बहुत पहले का, ग्रेट मतलब ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर के टाइम का. So one is Alex who's selling it, and the great grandfather name is Alexander, जिनका ये property है. So the story in short is this, that this man Alex, जो आदमी ये statue बेच रहा है, उसके great grandfather, he was an ambassador of the British government into China. And this man Alexander, Alex जो ये सामान बेच रहा है, उसके great grandfather, he was very interested in Ming dynasty. It's a art and craft dynasty, and art and craft में उनको बहुत interest है, और Ming dynasty के art and craft में उनको special interest था. So this man Alex के great grandfather, when he was posted into that place in China, he went to a Chinese shop, and a Chinese shop owner had gifted him this, and in return, the great grandfather had to give him a house in return. So this was a system in China कि अगर कोई आपको गिफ्ट दे तो उसी कैलेंडर ईयर में आपको भी गिफ्ट वापस देना पड़ता है. Suppose somebody gives you an iPhone, so iPhone का value का you have to return him something significant in his life. So Alexander, the great grandfather of this man who is selling his heirloom in this auction house, South Bay auction house, उसके great grandfather China में गए थे, और एक दुकान में जाके in one shop, by mistake he said कि I wish I had it. So the owner had given him this Chinese statue, and in return of the Chinese statue, Alexander had given a house to the Chinese man. So this was the background. So अब हम लोगों को पता चलेगा कि वो चाइनीज स्टैचू कितना में बिक रहा है, क्या है, और ये क्यों बिक रहा है, किसके लिए बिक रहा है। तो ये सब जानने के लिए कीप वॉचिंग द वीडियो, सो वी विल स्टडी इट लाइन बाय लाइन. So Jeffrey Archer, this writer, is normally famous for writing story in which normally he is accused of it, that he wants to create that English people are superior and non-English people are not so superior. And in this story too, we find this colonial superiority all over the story. So let's see the story in details. The little Chinese statue, एक छोटा सा वो है, स्टैचू है कोई चाइना का एम्पेयर का, was the next item to be sold under the auction or hammer. वो ऐसे ऐसे करते मूवी में दिखाता होगा, you must have seen in movies. So they have a hammer, they bang and then they sell it to the person. So the next item to be sold in under the auction hammer was lot number 3103. So ऑक्शन में जब कोई आइटम आता है तो सबका एक नंबर होता है, और इस आइटम का नंबर था 103. सो दिस ऑक्शन हाउस में जो ये सामान बिक रहा था और का एक आइटम होता है, और इस आइटम का मतलब चाइनीज स्टैचू का आइटम का नंबर था 103. So when it came into the auction house, there was a lot of quite murmuring. सब लोग ऐसे बात करने लगे. You know, this always precede the sale of a masterpiece. मतलब कोई स्पेशल चीज जब बिक्री होता है, तो यूनिक आइटम, तो नॉर्मली ये होता है कि people start whispering and murmuring about it. So here, this was also a special thing. So people were talking about it, whispering about it. The auctioneer's assistant held up the delicate piece of ivory. तो auction का assistant जो था, वो ऐसे सबको लेकर दिखा रहा था, ये देखिए, ये देखिए, ये Chinese style. He held up the delicate piece of ivory for the packed audience to admire. It was made of ivory, so everybody was admiring it. While the auctioneer glanced around the room, so auctioneer देख रहा था कौन कौन मेरा पुराना customer है to whom I can sell it. So he knew who were the serious bidder. बाकी लोग तो ऐसे ही वहाँ घूमने के लिए आते हैं, तो कुछ लोग serious है. So he was observing कौन कौन मेरा अच्छा customer है. I studied my catalog and read the detailed description and what was the history. So the narrator Jeffrey Archer has gone there. So he was also there. So he was studying the details कि ये सामान किसका है, कौन है, कब बेचा है. तो the statue has been purchased, उसमें लिखा हुआ था, in Halichuan in 1971. So this place is in China and was referred to as South Bay. Quaintly described it. South Bay is the name of 20 minutes, very beautifully described it. South Bay is the auction house in which the story begins. It is in London. The property of a gentleman. तो साउथ वे में जो कैटलॉग बनाया था उसमें ये लिखा हुआ था, ये एक प्रॉपर्टी एक जेंटलमैन का है. यूजुअली मीनिंग दैट सम मेंबर ऑफ aristocracy did not wish to admit that he was selling of his family heirloom. तो ये नॉर्मली तब लिखा जाता है प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ ए जेंटलमैन जब कोई आदमी, अमीर आदमी, करोड़पति आदमी, एरिस्टोक्रेटिक आदमी, खानदानी आदमी अपने फैमिली का कोई सामान, निशानी बेचता है तो वो छुपाना चाहता है, बिकॉज ये तभी बिकता है when the family is in a very dire situation, in a very bad financial situation. I wondered if there was the case on the occasion and decided to do some research about the little Chinese statue. तो नरेटर सेज कि आखिर हमको जानना था कि ये चाइनीज स्टैचू किसका है, क्यों है, कब, कौन बेच रहा है, क्यों बेच रहा है, किस लिए बेच रहा है. So the narrator was selling auction number 3, this magnificent example किसको खरीदना है. So now the story goes into flashback. So the story begins in Southway, an auction house in London, where narrator has gone there and the auction owner is selling a special Chinese statue, और उस कैटलॉग में लिखा है कि दिस आइटम बिलोंग्स टू ए जेंटलमैन. सो नरेटर जेफरी आर्चर वांटेड टू नो द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ दिस. ही वांटेड टू नो कि ये किसका है, कब आया, क्यों आया, हाउ इट केम, व्हेन इट केम, व्हाई इट केम. So this is the background. So now the story goes into flashback till almost the end of the story. So now we will know about the history of this Chinese statue about 100 years ago. बहुत पुराना ये स्टैचू है, तो अब कहानी में फ्लैशबैक में बताया जाएगा कि चाइनीज स्टैचू कहाँ से आया था. Sir Alexander Heathcote, as being a gentleman, was an exact man. He was a gentleman. Sir Alexander Heathcote, ये मतलब बैकग्राउंड में अभी जो आदमी बेचने आया एलेक्स, उसके ग्रेट ग्रैंड फादर है, मतलब दादा के पापा. तो ही वॉज ए रियल जेंटलमैन, वो शरीफ आदमी थे, अच्छे इंसान थे. ही वॉज एग्जैक्ट मैन, ही वॉज अ वेरी डिसिप्लिन मैन. ही वॉज 6 feet and 3 inches लंबा तो, and a quarter of inches tall. He used to rise every morning at 7. हर दिन सुबह 7 बजे उठते थे, अपने वाइफ के साथ ब्रेकफास्ट करते थे, और एक 1 boiled egg जो प्रिसाइजली 2 मिनट इतना सेकंड के लिए बॉयल होता था, और फिर एक टोस्ट बनाते थे, इसमें कूपर्स मार्मेड एक फ्रूट का वो जेली जैसा होता है उसको लगाते थे, और एक चाइना कप टी पीते थे. डेली का उनका ये रूटीन था. फिर वो अपने कैरेज में बैठ के वो अपने काम में जाते थे, और ठीक शाम को एग्जैक्टली टाइम देख के एट द मार्क ऑफ 6 वो घर आते थे. एंड दिस वे ही कंटिन्यूड ऑल हिज लाइफ. सो सर अलेक्जेंडर हीथकोट, जिनका ये चाइनीज स्टैचू था आज से 100 साल पहले, he was a very very disciplined man, and he used to rise up and sleep and eat at a very precise moment. He was a perfect Englishman. As we all know, Englishmen were very particular about their things and timing, so he was of that kind. Sir Alexander has been like this at a very early age because his father was a general. मतलब आर्मी में थे, तो आर्मी के में लोग डिसिप्लिन होते हैं. So discipline came to him naturally because of his father. But unlike his father, उसके पापा मैंने अलेक्जेंडर हिटकोट के पापा तो आर्मी में थे, but he chose to serve the queen in a diplomatic service. एक होता है आर्मी और एक होता है एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विस, आईपीएस आईएएस, मतलब आईएएस एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विस. तो एक होता है इंडियन पुलिस वाला, एक होता है जो मतलब पेपर वर्क करते हैं. So he thought, decided that he will serve the British government, the Queen of England, in a diplomatic service. Okay, calling exactly his calling, वो उसका दिल था, वो उसका डिजायर था. He progressed from a shared desk, पहले वो डेस्क में काम कर किया. He was secretary in Calcutta because England used to rule in India at that time. Then he was sent to Rome, and then he was sent to Washington. Then he was sent to Peking. He was delighted when Mr. Gladstone invited him to present him the government in China. Then he was given the duty of becoming a ambassador to China. So he had an amateur interest, मेरे को expert तो था नहीं, मतलब एक hobby वाला interest था Ming dynasty में. So the great moment, crowning moment, मतलब climax moment आया कि when he was able to go to China and study the Ming dynasty in person, not through books, not through novels, but from face to face, watching all those art and craft. When Alexander arrived in China, Peking, after a journey by sea, उस जमाने में लोग sea से जाते थे, it took him 2 months. So he took the letter of England to the Chinese Queen Victoria के letter Chinese के किंग और क्वीन को दिखाएं. तो then he was given the job to be the ambassador in China. Okay, और वहाँ की जो क्वीन थी चाइना की, वो एक बार स्लाइटली ऐसे लिप्स की, मतलब कि अब तुम जाओ. He was conducted into the great hall. So when he was passing through that great room of the queen of that country, China, he was observing that there were many great magnificent paintings. जैसे इटली में माइकल एंजेलो और सेरेने का पेंटिंग है, फ्लोरेंस में इटली में, वैसे यहाँ में वहाँ का मैंने चाइना का बहुत सारा डिजाइन पेंटिंग आर्ट था. So this proves that Alexander Heathcote was moving very slowly because he was observing all those great things. So this proves that he had a genuine interest in art and craft and sculpture and things related to literature. So he was a man whose desire was for art and craft. Yes, of sculpture. As the ministerial appointment was only for 3 hours, 3 years, मैंने उसका वहाँ पोस्टिंग 3 साल था. Alexander Heathcote was posted in China for 3 years. बट ही टुक नो लीव टू कम टू इंग्लैंड, क्योंकि आने में 2 महीना लग गए, तो फिर जाने में 2 महीना, सो ही डिड नॉट टेक एनी छुट्टी, एनी हॉलीडे। एंड जब भी उसको छुट्टी मिलता वो वहीं रहता, एंड ही यूज्ड टू ट्रैवल इन द लोकेलिटी ऑफ चाइना and used to meet country people, villagers, and used to learn about a lot of things. And he always had a translator, of course. So ऐसे ही वो जगह जगह घूमते रहता, छुट्टी में वो इंग्लैंड तो आएगा कैसे, मैंने आ तो सकता ही था, but he never wanted to come because he wanted to use his time in learning about Chinese art and craft. So in one such journey, passing to the muddy streets of small village, but a few houses called हाली चुआन, मतलब एक विलेज में वो गया ऐसे ही अपने घूमते घूमते, तो उस विलेज का नाम था हाली चुआन, और इट वाज सम डिस्टेंस फ्रॉम पेकिंग। पेकिंग में वो उसका पोस्टिंग था, वहां से कुछ दूर वो घूमने गया था। सर अलेक्जेंडर चांस टू गो इनटू अ क्राफ्टमैन वर्किंग प्लेस, तो वो घूमते घूमते क्राफ्टमैन के, जहाँ उसका जो फैक्ट्री तो मॉडर्न वर्ड है, जहाँ वो क्राफ्ट का काम करता है, वहां वो गए। Leaving his servant, he mounted from the horse and entered the ramshackle wooden workshop. मैंने जैसे तैसे बिखरा उखरा था उसमें, ये अलेक्जेंडर हीट को एम्बेसडर ऑफ इंग्लैंड who was posted to China Peking, वो उसके उस पर्टिकुलर जहां वो काम करता है उसमें गए। तो आइवरी जेड अलग अलग डिजाइन का बहुत कुछ था। There were many pieces the craftsman had made. Okay. Once in the shop, he could hardly move very quickly because चारों तरफ सामान बिखरे हुए थे। अगर वो हड़बड़ी से चलेगा तो सब गिर जाएगा। और एक तो वहां का रूम छोटा छोटा, और अलेक्जेंडर हीट को 6 फीट, उनके लिए तो ये रूम डिजाइन नहीं किया गया था। सर अलेक्जेंडर स्टूड देयर एंड इन ऑलवेज सरप्राइज लुकिंग एट दिस के, इतना अच्छा अच्छा मतलब आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट कार्विंग है। The old craftsman came forward, okay, in a very blue coolie robe, मैंने एक ड्रेस पहने थे, जेट ब्लैक उनका वो पिगी टेल था, वो चाइनीज के लोग ऐसे अपना चोटी बांध लेते हैं। ओके, द मिनिस्टर एंटर्ड द बो, मैंने वो ऐसे किया, मिनिस्टर ने भी ऐसे किया, और जो ट्रांसलेटर मैंडरिन था वो दोनों के बात को ट्रांसलेट करने लगा। द ओल्ड मैन वाज नॉडिंग हिज एग्रीमेंट इवन बिफोर द मैंडरिन हैड कम टू द एंड ऑफ द रिक्वेस्ट। तो फॉर एन आवर द मिनिस्टर साइड एंड चकल्ड, मतलब मंडारिन मैंने ट्रांसलेटर ने कहा उस चाइनीज स्टैचू बनाने वाले को कि दिस मैन, ये जो है ये एम्बेसडर है, ये आपका ये सब सामान देखना चाहते हैं। सो इवन बिफोर द चाइनीज मैन कुड अंडरस्टैंड वट एवर वाज सेड, ही सेड यस यस, इनको देखने दीजिए। सो अलेक्जेंडर हीट कोट द मैन हु इज अपॉइंटेड एज एन एम्बेसडर of England to China, he was watching everything, and he was praising the old man, and finally returned to the old man with his praise. The craftsman bowed once again, and his size smile revealed no teeth but only genuine pleasure. दांत तो उसका था नहीं चाइनीज का, लेकिन वो सच मुस्कुरा रहा था। Pointing to a finger at the back of the shop, he beckoned the two visitors to follow him. एक मतलब उसका आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट का दुकान था, वहां से क्राफ्ट करता, बोला उधर उधर चलिए। So it took them and they went into a veritable मैंने मैजिकल अनरियल अलाउद्दीन केव जैसा कोई जगह था। वहां पे और छोटे 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 स्टैचू बनाए हुए थे। द मिनिस्टर हैव हैप्पीली सेटल्ड डाउन इन ऑर्जी ऑफ आइवरी फॉर एटलीस्ट अ वीक, मतलब ये सब देखते देखते तो बहुत टाइम लगेगा। द अलेक्जेंडर क्राफ्टमैन चैटेड अवे टू ईच अदर टू द इंटरप्रेटर, मतलब इंटरप्रेटर से ये इंग्लिश में बोल रहे थे और वो चाइनीज का ट्रांसलेशन कर रहा था। तो ये बात में पता चल गया कि ये आदमी को, मतलब अलेक्जेंडर हीथकोट को, द मैन हु इज अपॉइंटेड एज एन एम्बेसडर, इनको बहुत मिंग डायनेस्टी में बहुत इंटरेस्ट है, मतलब ये आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट ऑफ द डायनेस्टी ऑफ द प्लेस कॉल्ड मिंग, बहुत इंटरेस्ट है। द लिटिल क्राफ्टमैन फेस बिकेम वेरी हैप्पी एंड ही सेड समथिंग, एंड इनडायरेक्टली ही सेड कि हम आपको कुछ अच्छा दिखाते हैं, और चलिए। I have, Your Excellency, a piece of Ming myself that you might care to have. A statue that has been in my family for 7 generations. So this man said that I will show you a special piece of art that has been in his family for many, many generations. So Alexander Heathcote said, I will be honored, please show me. So the special art and craft, the special Chinese statue was shown to Sir Alexander Heathcote. The man ran to the other room, and from there he bought that special Chinese statue. A few minutes passed, and then the man came with his piggy ponytail bouncing up and down. He came. He was now clinging to something very close to his heart. So the way he was catching that treasure, it proved that he really valued that. The way the Chinese man, the way this Chinese man was carrying all this showed that he really valued this. The craftsman passed the piece over for minister to study. तो ये आदमी जो था, ये चाइनीज मैन अलेक्जेंडर हीथकोट को ये दिया कि ये देखिए. Sir Alexander Heathcote opened wide and he could not hide his excitement. So Alexander Heathcote was really surprised, happy that this man has showed me and has brought me into a special chamber and he's showing me his family heirloom. And the statue was of an emperor. It was a perfect example of Ming dynasty, a perfect art and craft example था. Sir Alexander felt confident that the maker was great पेंटिंग. सो अलेक्जेंडर हीथकोट, देखिए कि ये कोई महान चाइनीज पेंटर है, उसका नाम है पेनक्यू, वो पेंटिंग किया था. द डेट मस्ट हैव बीन 15th century. तो एक तो ये बहुत ऐतिहासिक पेंटिंग है, मतलब स्कल्पचर है. दूसरा, इट हैज बीन पेंटेड बाय द ग्रेट ग्रेट पेंटर. सो इट हैज हिस्टोरिकल वैल्यू and it has a value because it comes from a very special painter. And there was no blemish. Only the missing part was a statue has to be kept on the base. So the base was not there. So, so this man, Chinese man, bought a base and fit it. And then he said, "Sir, do you think this statue is good?" The Chinese man asked Sir Alexander Heathcote, "Sir, do you think that this statue is good?" So Alexander Heathcote said, "It's magnificent." So Chinese man said, "Sir, my work is not good. This I did not make. ये तो मेरे खानदान में बहुत साल से पहले से है. So this is great." So Alexander Heathcote said, "No, your work is also good." But Sir Alexander was holding the ivory statue in a way that already showed the same love as the old man had for the piece. So Alexander Heathcote also was very, very excited to see such a great thing. And the same excitement was in the Chinese man who was showing the statue. The minister smiled at the craft as he handed back the emperor's king, as he uttered perhaps the only undiplomatic word that he has ever said in his whole lifetime. So this man, Alexander Heathcote, when he was watching the Chinese statue, by mistake he said, "I wish I had the piece." He said, "I wish I had it." So there is a custom in China that if a guest comes and says, "I wish I had it," and if it is possible, you have to give that gift to that person, to that guest. Since Alexander Heathcote is a guest in this Chinese situation, in this Chinese culture, and ये Chinese का घर है और एक Englishman आके बोल रहा है, "I wish I had it," so इस आदमी को इसको देना पड़ेगा. मतलब चाइना में एक कस्टम है कि अगर कोई आपके घर में आके बोले कि काश मेरे पास होता, तो आपको वो चीज उस गेस्ट को देना पड़ेगा. तो ये चाइनीज अब डिसाइड कर लिया है कि ये अपने खानदान का बहुत पुराना हेयरलूम ये अब देगा किसी को. किसको देगा? ये अलेक्जेंडर हिटकोट को देगा. ना अलेक्जेंडर हिटकोट रिग्रेटेड, तो ये बहुत गलती कर दी हो, बिकॉज ही इज नॉट सपोज टू से दिस. सो बिफोर ही कुड से एनीथिंग, द ट्रांसलेटर ऑलरेडी ट्रांसलेटेड इट. सो ही सेड, "No, it was by mistake." But the Chinese man said, "No, sir, you have to take it because you are the guest. और गेस्ट अगर नहीं लेंगे तुम लोग का बेइज्जती हो जाएगा." A sad look came on the face of the craftsman. So the craftsman becomes sad because now he has to give his family heirloom to this Englishman Alexander Heathcote. He said, "No, I will not take it. I was just joking." So the man said, "Sir, this is my small room. If you do not take it, then it will be an insult to our culture. So it will be an insult to my home." So at last, Alexander Heathcote had to take the Chinese statue, which belonged to so many generations back, which was supposed to be painted by Banerjee, which was 15th century statue. So he gave the base and the statue to Alexander Heathcote. So while Alexander Heathcote was coming, so his translator said कि सर डू यू नो कि अगर आप किसी से कोई स्टैचू कुछ भी लेते हैं तो विद इन द सेम कैलेंडर यू हैव टू रिटर्न बैक समथिंग टू हिम. So he went to the corner of the room, opened the room, he picked up a small base and fitted it. ये सब fit करके Alexander Heathcote को ये दे दिए. So they boarded and come on. As they were traveling back, the translator said, "Your Excellency is no doubt aware that if you take something, then you have to return that thing of the same value to that person." मतलब अगर आप किसी के यहाँ गेस्ट बन के गए चाइना में और आपने कहा आई विश आई हैड इट, सो द पर्सन विल गिव इट टू यू, गुड, बट यू हैव टू रिटर्न इट बैक टू हिम इन सम अदर फॉर्म, इन सम अदर थिंग ऑफ द सेम वैल्यू. मतलब किसी ने आपको अगर एक पिलो दिया, तो अगर पिलो का दाम है 2,000, तो यू हैव टू रिटर्न बैक टू दैट पर्सन, नॉट द पिलो ऑफ कोर्स, but of the same value of something that is needed in his life. So this is the custom of China, not of India. Because in India people will take advantage of this. So they will keep trying, saying, "I wish I had it," and they'll take it. So this is a Chinese custom. So this is a Chinese custom that if in England somebody says, "I wish I had it," then you have to return back something of the same value to that person. Sir Alexander smiled his thanks and thought carefully about the Mandarin's word. Alexander ने सोचा, अरे ये स्टैचू तो मैंने ले लिया है, अब कुछ वापस भी करना है. So he went back to his official house residence and went back to the embassy. लाइब्रेरी में जाके देखा कि इस चाइनीज स्टैचू का क्या वैल्यू होगा. So after a lot of research, after a lot of drawing, उस जमाने में इंटरनेट नहीं था, उस जमाने में यूट्यूब विकिपीडिया नहीं था. So he saw मिंग एंड मतलब द स्टैचू का वैसा ही एक और रेप्लिका, एक पिक्चर था जिसमें उसका वैल्यू लिखा था, एंड इट वाज 3 years सैलरी फॉर ए सर्वेंट ऑफ ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट. So it was a very very expensive statue that was given to him, and he thought that's a very expensive statue, and he saw the value. It was 3 years salary of Sir Alexander Heathcote. So the minister discussed the problem with his own wife, and she said, "No, we have to give it back to that Mandarin in some way or the other." So next week, he wrote a letter to his London bank, and he said कि हमको ये मेरे saving से इतना पैसा चाहिए. So within 3 weeks, the saving came. Oh, sorry, he asked for 7 days. So within few days, the money came. So now he cannot give the money, so he has to buy something. So the translator had discovered that the craftsman, जिसके घर वो गए थे, उनका नाम था Hung Lee. He was an old man and he was planning to buy a house on the top of the mountain. It's a kind of village where he can take rest and spend rest of his life in doing something. So Sir Alexander also learned that many of young Lee and ancestor had example of the work. मैंने वहाँ और भी बहुत सारे घर थे जो आर्टिस्ट लोग के थे. So young Lee भी एक वहाँ घर लेना चाहता था, but he did not have the money. So his son will look after the workshop, and he has decided that he will go and spend the rest of his life on the top of the mountain. So ये सब translator से पता चला. A few days later, the emperor granted Sir emperor भी बोल दी, हाँ इसको ये घर देना चाहिए. Almost a year to the day, मतलब एक साल होते होते, okay, तो mandarin लोग फिर उसके गांव में गए, हालीचुआ में. Where Alexander had arrived, he immediately came down from the horse, dismounted from the horse, and entered the workshop. And he said to the old man कि चलिए हम लोग थोड़ा ऊपर माउंटेन पे चलते हैं. So तीनों आदमी, ट्रांसलेटर अलेक्जेंडर हीथकोट और वो चाइनीज स्टैचू बेचने वाला यंग ली, तीनों वहां जाने लगे. So he kept on walking there. So he said, "I have not returned, sir, within the calendar yet." He says कि सर हम आपको हमको जो कुछ दिए थे, तो यहाँ का चाइनीज का कस्टम है कि if somebody gives you something, you have to return back something to him. So I have come to return something back to you. So he says, "No, no, sir, it's not needed. It's my honor कि मेरा statue is living in England with Queen of England, so this is my honor. I don't need anything." So the minister could not think of any word. So they kept on walking till the top of the mountain. And there, at the foot of the hill, they they had already made up a small house where जहाँ दो stone lion का design था, okay, बहुत खूबसूरत था, and then they showed कि this is the small inadequate gift. वो घर को दिखा के Sir Alexander Heathcote is saying to the Chinese man कि since you gave me this Chinese statue, from my side this is a small gift, please accept it. So the Chinese man, वो Chinese statue बेचने वाला इंसान वो रोने लगा. He fell at the feet of Alexander Heathcote and said, "Sir, it is not good, पर it is forbidden." ये मना है कि क्या मतलब आर्टिस्ट कभी भी किसी से कोई सामान ले, so we can't accept gift from somebody. But he kept on saying, "Sir, will not take it." But at last it was said कि Queen ने ये भेजा है, so you have to take it. So the man became happy, the craftsman became happy. Okay, and then he was given this house. The three travelers spent the hour admiring the house. The two men thus parted, and Alexander came back to the embassy, and the story that ended there. The minister completed his 3 years in Peking, and then he was awarded even this the Knight Hood Award, kind of knight award. मतलब the queen is supporting you as a knight. He award मिला, he became very decorated, very famous, achieved person. And wherever this man, Alexander Heathcote, went, whether in China or in England or anywhere, he always carried this Chinese statue and kept it on his mantelpiece. So Sir Alexander, in his final days, okay, along with his wife, he said कि सुनो कि दिस इज आवर फैमिली हेयरलूम, मतलब ये हमारे खानदान का एक निशानी है, and this should not be sold until there is a great financial problem. So he gave it to his son gave it to his son, and this continued. So he made a provision that this was never to be disposed, sold until the whole family honor is at stake. So उसका पहला बेटा हुआ Alexander Heathcote का James Heathcote. He was also a good man, he kept it in his family. The next generation hua, he also kept it in his family. Okay, the next generation also kept it in his family. So this continued till this family एक से दूसरे family में, दूसरे से तीसरे family में चलता रहा, and of many generations, at last it came to an Alex, a person called Alex. मतलब ये इसका पोता था, पर पोता, great grandson. This man has been very bad character man. He has been gambling, he has been drinking, and because of all this, he has sold many things of his house. So this was, he used to live a very lavish lifestyle. His name is Alex. So Alex from his very school life has been a very spendthrift. और उसकी मम्मी पापा ने उसको बहका दिया था, और उसके मतलब उसको हेल्प करते थे with so many things. So he was very regular to casino जहाँ लोग जुआ खेलते हैं, and he thought कि जिंदगी जीतने का, कमाने का, अर्निंग करने का एक ही तरीका है जुआ खेलना. और उसको लगता था कि अब जुआ में हम जीत जाएंगे, अब जुआ में हम जीत जाएंगे, अब जुआ में जीत जाएंगे, लेकिन वो कभी जुआ में कोई जीतता है. So gambling as always is very destructive. So he was in continuous debt, so he had to sell many things. So now he has planned, मतलब एक आदमी उसको फोन किया है कि तुमसे इतना उधार लिया है, तुम इतना पैसा दो, नहीं तो योर लाइफ इज इन डेंजर. तो मरता क्या ना करता. सर अलेक्जेंडर हीथकोट के पर पोता ने, एलेक्स ने डिसाइड किया he is going to sell his family heirloom, that is a Chinese statue. So he went to the south way जहाँ कहानी शुरू हुआ था, auction house, and he gave it to the person के इसको देखिए एक बार, लैब में टेस्ट करके देखिए कि व्हाट इज द प्राइस. सो लैब में टेस्ट करने के लिए इसने ये दिया. he went to the Bond Street to the south way and he gave instruction that इसको ये ऑक्शन में बेचना है. तो ये सब टेस्ट हुआ. उसके बाद on the particular day he was called. So he said कि ठीक है, हम फ्राइडे को आके इसको हमको डिटेल्स बताइए कि इसका कितना पैसा मिल सकता है क्या है. सो दिस मैन एलेक्स, जो जुआड़ी था, जो ड्रंकर्ड था, जो कैरेक्टरलेस था, जो एक लेविश लाइफस्टाइल जीता था, कुछ काम नहीं करता था. सो दिस मैन वेंट ऑन फ्राइडे, एंड देन साउथ वे के जो ओनर थे वो बोले, सर ये जो स्टैचू है which you think is of your great grandfather who has bought it from China as an ambassador, ये स्टैचू सर फेक, इसका बहुत कम दाम मिलेगा, लेकिन सर इसका जो बेस है ये असली है. The statue is fake, but the base is real. Now, this man, Alexander Heathcote's great grandson Alex, was in such a dire situation, such a horrible, pathetic condition that he had no other option. He said, sell the damn thing, बेच दो. मैंने स्टैचू सबके साथ बेच दो. So we come back to the starting of the story कि जहाँ ऑक्शन हाउस में बोल रहा था कम ऑन 1 2 3, तो अब ये पूछ रहा है कि अच्छा इस कितना मिलेगा. 700 पाउंड, 800 एट द मोस्ट, मतलब इसका 700 मिलेगा स्टैचू का. लेकिन उसका जो बेस है, बोल रहा बेस बहुत बहुत पुराना है, बेस बहुत है, इट इज 720 गिनीज, मतलब बेस बहुत महंगा है. So here we come to know that till now, what has been thought as the most expensive thing of the family heirloom, it turned out to be a very, very less value item. And the base, which was thought to be a very, very inferior material made item, was very expensive. So now, the very obvious question that should come in everybody's mind is, was that person who was selling the Chinese statue, did he cheat it? या उसने जानबूझ के कुछ गलत स्टैचू दिया, या क्या जिसने लिया उनके फैमिली में किसी ने बदल दिया. So this is not mentioned in the story. So the story is open-ended story where it is up to us to know कि आखिर ये चाइनीज स्टैचू कैसे बदल गया. इट माइट बी दैट द ओनर हु सोल्ड इट हिमसेल्फ डिड इट, और इट मे बी दैट अलेक्जेंडर हीथकोट, और ये एक्सपर्ट थे, कैसे ये एक्सपर्ट थे, और ये थे भी उनके फैमिली में शायद किसी ने बदला. सो हियर इज अ परफेक्ट एग्जांपल ऑफ हाउ ब्रिटिशर्स, इंग्लिश पीपल, believe that they are always treated by the non-white people. The Chinese people are non-white. So how white often get cheated by non-white people. So Jeffrey Archer, as usual, I told in the beginning of the story, is there to establish colonial superiority, white people supremacy over the non-white people. So here the Alexander Heathcote superiority, that he is so naive, that he has been cheated by a Chinese Ming dynasty statue maker. So with this structure, the story is written. So if you have found the story of any meaning, please do share it and like it and subscribe it. And if you have any question, please ask in the comment box. Thank you.